My name is Katie, and this is my atypical presentation on emotional abuse in middle childhood, which covers ages 6 through 11. Emotional abuse in middle childhood is also known as psychological abuse, and it is a pattern of behavior that damages a child's sense of self-worth and negatively impacts their emotional development. It typically occurs in conjunction with other forms of abuse, such as verbal abuse, as well as sometimes physical abuse. It is usually subtle and impacts the child over time. It's not usually something that has direct effects that are short term. And the abuser uses psychological warfare to tear the child down to an established dominance. It's very much about power. Direct effects on a development include emotional development is they cannot control their own emotions, so there's a lot of dysregulation in their emotional outward appearance. Socially, it tends to cause the child to kind of isolate themselves, which in return causes peer rejection. Cognitively, it can cloud their judgment and make them unable to make decisions without second guessing themselves based on the opinions of what others have told them. And physically, you'll see weight changes, decreased mood, as well as sometimes you'll even see self-harm markings if the child is partaking in that. Indirect effects on development are more long-term effects, which include a slew of mental health disorders, anxiety, depression. It causes them even to have symptoms of ADHD, and a lot of times children that have been going through emotional abuse will often be diagnosed with ADHD. Again, they are having a hard time concentrating based on all of those thoughts going through their head. Sometimes it'll cause them to fail out of school due to poor performance in their grades, and even up to substance abuse and alcohol abuse as they become older. It is only through age 11 that this is covering, but it does have long-term side effects that may affect children in their teenage years as well as when they're adults. Red flags that caregivers or parents can look for. Sometimes they will isolate themselves from others so they do not have many friends or participate in activities. Sometimes the participating in activities isn't due to their control either. Sometimes it is a parent that is keeping that child from participating in those activities, which is also a form of the abuse. The child typically has a low mood or they can seem sad. They also can seem distracted a lot. If they're, throwing around all those things that people have said to them. Parent involvement is a big one. Sometimes parents can be over-involved, which would show that that parent needs that control over other people at times, which directly relates back to how they are over-controlling their child. Some parents are not involved at all, which is a sign of neglect. And that certainly factors into emotional abuse as well, whether that child feels like they are good enough or not. Some parents also will have either substance abuse problems of their own, or they will be going through physical or emotional or verbal abuse that can deflect onto the child. Sometimes they're taking that frustration out on the child, even though it's happening to them as well. It's kind of a continuing pattern. Other parents may have their own mental health issues that can cause them to neglect their child, making that child feel as though that child is not good enough. Observations and documentation of signs. It's hard to document emotional abuse at times. You can document behavior changes. I know personally from working in childcare, we have documentation forms we fill out if we notice behavior changes in a child, if they are acting out more, or you can also document any conversations that you see between a child and a parent, this is often done in the healthcare field, they are able to try to verbatim quote how the parent is talking to the child to determine whether or not that child is being abused or not. Signs and symptoms. There's so many signs and symptoms of emotional abuse. It takes a big toll on children. Mental disorders are a very big one. It causes depression, anxiety, even in children who are young, like 6 years old. Sometimes they will have developmental delays or regressions, such as bedwetting is a big one. If your child, especially in this age group, is fully potty trained and they start wetting the bed out of the blue, that usually means something's happening to them in their life. It also can delay emotional development, which sometimes can make you think that a child may have a developmental delay cognitively. However, it could just be that that child just has kind of shut down and doesn't know how to correctly respond emotionally to certain situations. A lot of times children will act out because of emotional abuse. Again, a big form of emotional abuse is neglect. And so children who are feeling neglected will sometimes act out trying to gain affection from others. Or also, you have the decreased mood, which is a big one if that child is, their self-esteem is just turned to dust from what these parents or other adults in their lives are saying to them. The resources for caregivers is just a website that I wanted to share. It is a PDF document that has many, many resources for parents on there. You can view that if you would like. Professional support. There is a lot of professional support out there for children who are in abusive situations. It's just a matter of that child or that parent reaching out to the people who are available. Teachers are always trained to deal with situations like these. Counselors, of course, are a big one. However, it's tough sometimes to get a child to see a counselor or open up to a counselor. That's where school counselors can come into play, and they, can see the child at school as opposed to pulling them out of an environment that they may be comfortable in. Physicians as well are there for support, be it recommendations to counselors, or if a child is physically harming themselves. Sometimes one of the signs of emotional abuse is ailments. So, obviously seeing a physician for a headache problem that is persisting or something like that, that's a big one. There's also Child Protective Services and the Department of Human Services that are available as well that have very many resources that they can refer parents to seek help if they personally need help with something, or if the child is going through something. Maybe the child is going through abuse that is not from the parent, but is from another family member or another caregiver in their life. And the parent doesn't even know where to start. They can reach out to these programs and they would be happy to help them. Treatment programs for emotional abuse. Sometimes it's medication. However, that's not typically in direct correlation to the emotional abuse. It's in correlation to the symptoms of emotional abuse, such as anxiety and depression. Those can be treated obviously with medications. Actual abuse itself, there's no medication that can heal that person. There's therapy and counseling sessions, be it group therapy, family counseling, counseling for children, any of those sorts of things. Some children also seek different types of meditation techniques that can help ease their mind a bit, be it yoga or, something of that nature. There also is parent treatment and classes available if there is an issue with the parent, be it substance abuse. There's rehab facilities for those. If the parent seeks treatment and the parent that particular problem is why the parent is abusing the child, then those treatments can, correlate to help that child as well. Parenting classes as well. Sometimes parents just don't necessarily understand that what they're saying is really harmful to their child. And so maybe they just need to take classes in that aspect, or maybe they need anger management classes or growth and development classes even to determine what is and isn't appropriate to say to children that may affect them. So that wraps up my presentation. I hope that you learned as much as you could about emotional abuse in middle childhood. Thank you.